In Bali, high up on the mountain slopes of Batu Karu volcano in Bedugul, is a large luxury hotel. It's around 1,500 feet above sea level. It is called the Taman Rekreasi Hotel and Resort. It's completely deserted and has been for 20 years or more. This eerie building is tucked away from the road on a snake-like bend surrounded by strawberry fields. It's easy to miss unless you are specifically looking for it. All building on the hotel ceased long ago, even though investment into it was said to be worth $100 million. It appears uninhabited, by any humans, that is. Some say it is haunted by the spirits of construction workers who died there. You have to convince the guard to allow you through the gate and a small garden for a few rupees, but he warns you to be careful, not for encountering ghosts, which they never dare to mention, but for the fixtures and fittings that are loose, and at any moment the ceilings and walls could collapse. You enter at your own risk. Even the pathway leading to the main door is not level to the building, so it's at a different angle. Visitors are off kilter from the start. At the entrance, I saw two other people. They appeared to be tourists with backpacks. That was disappointing, as I had hoped to be the only one there to take photos undisturbed by anyone else. So we held back a few minutes to let them go ahead. I thought perhaps we'll bump into them later. But once inside, and there is only one way in and out, we never saw them again. Not once, not in any room, not even a distant sound of them. And we were there for an hour or more. Strange how they just vanished without trace. You can see why it has attracted a lot of attention online from photographers. And in 2017, Romain Vaillant in the Daily Mail reported, visually, with his atmospheric photographs, he captured the spirit of abandoned places just like this one. Many YouTube vloggers come here seeking the thrill of the paranormal, and with every visit it adds to its charge of energy. The hotel looks as if it's a ready-made set for a scene in a supernatural horror film. Doorways that lead into other rooms leading nowhere in particular. Walls have strange marks on them like ink blots or sigils. Sudden areas of green light on steps from the broken roof tiles. A grand exit staircase leads to a forest undergrowth. Blood-red crosses on the windows, marked for demolition. Rooms we were plunged into darkness. Moss grows everywhere, nature encroaching and taking over. Broken shards of glass speak of neglect, sadness, and melancholy. Where the rooms had less and less light, there was an eerie presence. The temperature dropped. Shadows appeared on the wall, some just there naturally, and others created using flashbulbs. More photography than paranormal. But there are always odd shapes, like entities on the walls. Make of them what you will. I was reminded of a very creepy story by Paul Bowles called The Circular Valley, about a genius loci called the Atlajala. This is a hungry ghost. Many people feel watched by this spirit that feeds off human emotions. It's impersonal, detached, and not always intending any harm. Yet it craves the sensations that humans feel. It can in some cases take over the mind and unhinge the emotions. Then there are the Nagas, the creatures sculpted as serpents, holding up the gateways of temples. The culture of Bali is full of demons and spirits like this, all incorporated into one whole rounded view of life, and the hotel fits right into that picture, even though only 20 years old. There are some truly sacred sites here in Bali, like the cliff temple of Uluwatu, and they are supercharged with ancient geomagnetic vibes. There is an ancient stone in Sanur. It is venerated as the most ancient human-made artifact in Bali, the Belanjong Pillar. This mysterious stone, discovered in 1932, has Nagari script used for Balinese and Sanskrit, and is wrapped in a coloured cloth often used as protection from marauding spirits. No one is exactly sure how old the stone is, around 1,200 years at least, or what its purpose was, other than as an assertion of power and authority. The rest of Bali has an abundance of striking temples like Tanah Lot, which are venerated for good reason, poised on a dramatic sea rock. Yet because Bali is on a volcano, the entire area is charged with volcano energy. It's igneous rock with very fertile soil, and the phenomenal waterfalls flow from an underground primary water source, seemingly without end. When it comes to earth energy lines, Bali strikes a chord. All the rock temples and water sources are connected to Besaki, the mother temple on Mount Agung. That forms a solid grid that spreads to other islands, even as far as Angkor Wat in Cambodia. This makes Bali truly a center for healing. It's a focal point for energy vortexes where the presence of unseen forces is felt in daily life. You cannot escape the fact that the island houses all these volcanoes. The big three are venerated as sacred, and Mount Agung is used as the main geolocational orientation system for the island. From the highest temple in Bali, Penulisan, in Kintamani, the three peaks can be seen standing in a row like at Giza, and Agung, the tallest, really is shaped like a monumental pyramid. There's no mistaking its power. One ancient god of the volcano was called Batara di Tonta, worshipped in the ancient village of Trunyan on Lake Batur. In Trunyan, people are not cremated, but wrapped in a shroud and placed under a giant banyan tree to decompose. Their practices are older than those of the Majapahit dynasty. But there's also a backstory to the hotel, and that helps explain its mystique. It involves Hutomo, known as Tommy Suharto, the son of the Indonesian President Suharto. The hotel was said to have Tommy's investment money all over it. He stood to gain or lose by the success of this project. Suharto, Tommy, still is a pretty powerful and wily character. He loves money, girls, and Lamborghinis. He's not afraid of the Indonesian judiciary, and it is claimed he ordered the murder of the judge who put him and his best golfing pal Bob Hassan in jail. This all adds to the legend of why the energy at the hotel is so thwarted. On July 26, 2001, that same judge, Mr. Syafuddin Kartasasimta, who had turned down an 18 billion rupiah bribe, was gunned down on the streets of Jakarta. Fingers pointed to Tommy Suharto, who had gotten out of prison and was on the run. A year later, he was convicted again of owning the guns that killed the judge and was sentenced to 15 years. He was playing badminton in prison when the verdict was announced. Everything stalled on the Bedugul project. People who had been ruined by Suharto vocally cursed this hotel. Construction workers were said to have died here. So the place was almost finished, but now it languishes as a lure for what is called ghost tourism. I'm going to add here some astrology for the astrologically minded. Any examination of the astrological charts of the characters involved and each moment helps to unearth further clues in the mystery. These are usually configurations where strong, conflicting aspect patterns emerge. It sees beyond the surface into the forensics, just using a symbolic language. And even if that seems technical, the emergent potentials are often so clear, like hacking into the universe's hidden messages to understand the DNA of each significant moment in time. Tommy Suharto was born 15th of July 1962, a Cancer. He has Saturn opposite the North Node. He has Mars square Venus and Pluto opposite Jupiter, all immutable signs, which can be turbulent and difficult to contain. Cancer is highly emotional and intuitive, but also cardinal, so they don't mess around when they are on a vendetta. The hotel itself never had an opening date, but let's assume that the month that the hotel stalled in its tracks was roughly around the time of Suharto's conviction, so around September of 2000. That, incidentally, was soon after a partial eclipse in Leo on July 31st, the last in a series of 5 in that sign. Leo happens to be the zodiac sign of the country of Indonesia. While that particular eclipse was not visible over Bali, it did have several visible eclipses around this time. The chart of the day the judge was killed, July 26, 2001, has strong indicators something could happen. Potentially, not inevitably. But Mars was conjunct Pluto and Chiron all in Sagittarius, and all on the judge's natal sun. This configuration sits opposite Saturn in Gemini, which refers to short journeys. So you could say he was gunned down while driving his car. Mars is the gun, Pluto the death, and Chiron the wounding. The transiting sun in early Leo was also on the judge's natal Pluto and Chiron. It might have been better if he had stayed at home that day. The judge was himself a Sagittarius sun sign born in 1940, which often symbolizes the figure of a judge. If you put the two charts of the judge and Tommy together, you see the judge's Mars right on Tommy's Neptune, bound to cut through the corruption. But that proved fatal for him. Suharto seemed determined to prove his point. There is even a suggested link between the bombings that took place in downtown Kuta at Paddy's Bar and Tommy Suharto, as he owned shares in an explosive company. The majority killed there were Australian. They rebuilt the bar and called it Paddy's Reloaded. Trees and shrubs have grown around the structure of the hotel, and there is a dramatic staircase that just leads into an overgrowth of plants. So it has a fairy tale-ish atmosphere, like the Briar Rose story where nature puts people to sleep. There's also a palpable sense of decay here. The Japanese have a notion called Wabi Sabi, the elusive beauty of imperfection, an appreciation of the broken in which decaying, mouldy, flawed items can be deemed just as beautiful, because they incorporate that natural entropy and disintegration. The beauty is enhanced by the decay and rot and any flaws that need repair. This is a romantic notion, but it has a lot of appeal, and that really suits the Bedugul hotel. As to whether the hotel is genuinely haunted by people who actually died here, I don't really know. But definitely it feels like they might still be here, walking the empty rooms and hallways. There are no named ghosts with recorded sightings or any real documentation. It would need more investigation with better recording equipment to find out. But it's worth bearing in mind that spirits live on the surface here. According to Balinese tradition, a spirit only finally comes to rest once it is properly cremated, and many bodies are buried temporarily until the family can afford the proper cremation ceremony. So there could indeed be souls lost in limbo. They do occasionally dig up graves to retrieve the old bones to finally incinerate them to set the spirit free. Upon leaving, I said to the guard, "Thank you for letting us in, but you need to pray a lot." "Oh, I do," he said, "every day," and he pointed to the folded palm leaf offerings at the doorway with the incense burning. But I'm sure he does not rest easily there at night. Perhaps he hears a few strange noises. A portal is a portal no matter what. It can house elemental spirits and liminal or shadow people. "And who are those other people I saw going in?" He looked puzzled and said, "Those are guests." And then only later did I think perhaps it was lost in translation and he meant visitors. Because there are no guests at that hotel and never have been.